Alright, so hello and welcome to this subsurface scattering part inside of Octane, and we will ask ourselves some questions. We will talk about what is subsurface scattering, for what can I use it for, and so on and so on. So as you can see, we already have here some examples of what subsurface scattering is doing, and as the word itself says as well, you have a subsurface scattering effect. So under the surface you will have some kind of light scattering going on. And if you look at this picture, this was probably a test here by the UCSD Computer Graphics Labs. And here you can, let's maybe make this here a little bit bigger. I hope this is loading. I don't know, maybe my internet is messing up right now. This would be awesome when I'm recording something, or maybe the site is just really slow. Could be both. Okay, doesn't look too good. Anyway, here on this picture we can already see a little bit what is going on. Here we have no subsurface scattering whatsoever. Here it starts to look a little bit like it, and here we can really start to see that this looks a little bit like milk. So we have some, even though this picture is not really good to see right now, but we have some blue going on. A little bit of kind of a really bright orange, and then the rest is really white. But we can see through this material a little bit. The light gets scattered inside and then bounces around in all kinds of directions. The direction is of course something that we can manage as well with subsurface scattering with this little face button that I will show you later on. But yeah, basically that's it. Let me reload this. Maybe it's really my internet is messing. Let me check this quickly. Nope, it's definitely not my internet, it's just this website that is not loading. But I think this is a really good example here. Inside we can see it really that good. I mean, you can also hold like this guy, flashlight under your hand, and then just simply see what's going on. Let's maybe, here you have a little bit more. This was created on the 12th September 2001 and updated on June 12, 2006. This seems like more a little bit of an, how can I say, educational blog here, so you can really see what is going on. I mean, I can give you the link if you want, or you can request it in the forum if you really want this link to read a little bit more of subsurface scattering, what is going on, what is happening exactly. Here you can also see a little bit of, here this could also, you can make this with a two-sided material, effects like that. SSS would probably also help a little bit, or maybe would be even realistic. Grapes is always a great example. We could also try this, of course, to create grapes later on. We probably will. I think I already downloaded the image that I might want to recreate. So yeah, so this is basically subsurface scattering, and I will show you what you can do with it. I did set up this little test scene here with those little tiny elephants. And there's only one light coming from the front, so not really much to it. Let me also create a camera maybe here. And let me give this a Octane camera tag. Let me jump into the camera, enable the camera imager, and let me set this here to linear and the gamma to 2.2. So we have really a linear response here. No vignetting, no thanks sir. And maybe we could also give it a little bit of aperture if you want to, just for the look itself, if we really want to. The light seems to be a little bit strong, so we'll go down here maybe to 10, maybe even 5. Yeah, might look good. Okay, might still be a little bit too bright, but everything is 100% white probably right now in the scene, so this is why it also looks a little bit blurred out here. So this will change as soon as we put a material on them. Okay, so let's create first of all our first Octane material. And we have two options. We can use a subsurface scattering material in the diffuse, and we can use one in the specular. In the glossy it's not possible, also not necessary of course. Yeah, but this is what we can do if we want to. Diffuse I would probably use if I would do something like claws, because claws, all kind of claw stuff is also has something to do with subsurface scattering. Really has. But it's kind of, yeah, I mean, if you have a lot of claws going on in your scene, or maybe you're working for a model company, what do I know? It probably renders ages, but it might be the right way to go in some cases. Most artists just simply use a fall-off node for this. instead of using subsurface scattering. So this is really up to you, and I really don't want to go too much into it. This is maybe a chapter we can talk about later on anyway. Okay, so let's jump into the specular and let's see what we can do here. Here we also have the medium slot, we have a roughness, we have a reflection where we could mix in some color if we want to, if we go completely nuts and want to have maybe, I don't know, a green reflection or something like that. Should also change this here, a red reflection whatsoever. So as you can see now our reflection turns red, but this would really only be used for some kind of special material. To 99% you will never ever use this and will probably leave this as white or just simply black. As soon as this is 100% black, this channel doesn't really get used and just uses its default value, which is, I think, to 99.9% right for most of the materials. Yeah, we also can give this whole thing here an index, so kind of an IOR, an index of refraction. Let's maybe go here with something like 1.6. So something like glass. I mean, even soft glass might be. This is really something where people discuss a lot. So I would say 1.6 is a pretty good value. Some people work with 1.52 with glass. So those values really change, really depending on the artist. I really like 1.6 for glass a lot. So yeah, and here we have the medium slot, which is the most important one. Also the transmission is kind of important because we can give this whole thing here a little bit of color if we want to. Let me drop this material here onto our elephants. So as you can see, we get something like glass right now. So yeah, we get all this nice reflection and refraction and so on and so on. Can also change the roughness and make this maybe some kind of blurry glass, something that you would use in a bathroom, something like that. Maybe even a little bit blurrier. Some kind of, I call it bathroom glass. Looks kind of cool already. In the transmission, we could give this whole thing a little bit of color if we want to. So we can maybe make this here a little bit orange. So we have some basic color here. And now we have some orange glass going on. So that's basically it. And now we can use the index, the transmission, and the roughness with the medium, and then everything together will give us our final image. So in a medium slot, we can only load two things. We can load the absorption medium and we can load the scattering medium. Absorption medium is basically what it says, it's just simply an absorption. So when we load this here, I can just simply say, okay, at some point, just simply please absorb the light completely. So as soon as I play here with the density value, this, by the way, has changed. This was called scale value with Octane 2.0 and so on. Right now it's called density. I don't know why they have changed it. Maybe they think density is a better term for this. So yeah, whatsoever. So let's give this maybe an orange color again. So I can show you this a little bit better. And then here I can just simply say, okay, at a certain point, at a certain density, just simply try to absorb the light and just simply turn this whole thing black. So let's maybe set this here to 5, and you can see, okay, where the geometry is not so sick anymore, or at least where Octane thinks the geometry is not so sick anymore, also, of course, has a little bit something to do with the light. There we will have still a little bit of an orange color, and then it gets darker and darker and darker and darker. So the light will just simply be more and more absorbed. So this is why it's called absorption medium. So you can also use this, but most of the time you're probably better off with a scattering medium, which we will load right now. And here we also have our density thing. We have an absorption, we have a scattering. The emission is just really only if you want to emit some light from this thing. So we could use here a black body emission if we want to. So then we can let this thing emit light as well. And as you can see now, it's emitting light from the inside, which looks also kind of cool. We could go down here with the power, maybe to a value of 10, then it would look like this. Up it to 50, then it looks like this, and then we can go back to 100, and it would look like this. Could also bring this up to 1000, and so on and so on. Then it's really starting to glow a lot here. Most of the time you will not really use this. Maybe you will, maybe not, really depending on you. Anyway, if you try to load in the medium slot anything else than absorption medium and a scattering medium, it will just simply not work. No matter what you try, Octane will not let you do this. Okay, anyway, scattering medium. So this was the emission slot that I just showed you, so you can let this emit light as well. In the absorption, we load a float texture. This is what you probably will always do. So with this float texture, I would leave this at 0.5 normally. I think everything else doesn't really make much sense anyway. And in the scattering, we can load textures or an RGB spectrum. And in this case, we'll just simply load an RGB spectrum. And now we can give this whole thing on the inside a little bit of a different color. First of all, let's give this maybe a little bit of a lower orange color here inside of the transmission. So we can see a little bit better what's going on. And let's go down here with the density maybe to something of a value of 10. So we can see through a little bit better, and let's maybe give it a little bit of roughness. Let's maybe give it a roughness of 10. So it's not so 100% reflective here anymore. As you can see, we already start to get this little bit of scattering effect, even though this is a really noisy here. We should also check if everything is set here correctly. If you're working with direct lighting, I would not do that. I would definitely use path tracing or PMC when using this, when you're using SSS. Otherwise, you will not have enough bounces where the light can scatter around, so this will not give you such a realistic result. For SSS, PMC is probably the best with 24 specular depth. You can even go higher, but I think 24 is just fine. So here in the medium, we can of course change the density. The volume step length is not really so important, not really so important to us. If you really want to know more about this stuff, we can always read this through in the OTOI manual. The same here with the phase button, because my English is sometimes not really that good. So the phase function controls in what direction light gets scattered. There's currently one kind of phase function defined with one parameter, scattering direction. If set to 0, which it is by default, as you can see, phase 0. If it's set to 0, it means light gets scattered the same amount in any direction. This is most of the time the most realistic thing. A setting larger than 0 means forward scattering. The larger the value, the more light is scattered in a similar direction as it was traveling. 1.0 means it doesn't change direction. A negative value means back scattering, so more light is scattered back to where it came from. So this is basically the phase value. I just thought I read this here because my English is, it's not because I'm lazy, because sometimes I'm just simply, my English is not that good and I don't remember every single word, so I think, okay, reading this with you guys through might make also some sense. Okay, so this RGB spectrum here is not really interesting for us, so we can give this some kind of, let's go really nuts here and give this 100% red here. And as you can see, now we're getting some kind of mixed up color and displays now together here with the density. So if we give this here more density, you can see here in the preview, you can even see it a little bit better. So we start to get on the outside, of course, a little bit our basic color that is coming from the transmission here. Okay, now Octane is really slowing down. Let me close this window here quickly. So this is loading faster. So we're getting the basic color on the outside here from the transmission, but here on the inside, depending on our density, we get also a little bit of this red color, because the light is going in, is scattering around, and then we get this kind of translucency, light scattering around effect, which is exactly what we're looking for. And this can be used for all kinds of grapes, a lot of food, then also for, let me lie right now, plastics, of course, and so on and so on. So subsurface scattering is really common for leaves, for claws, for what do I know. So you can really use subsurface scattering for a lot of stuff. You really just need to know what you do and have to play around with the values. So let me set this here to 1. And as soon as we set this to 1, this should also update here at some point, hopefully. Let's maybe open up this window here again so we can see a little bit better what's going on. So yeah, as you can see, when we set this here to 1, the effect is not so strong anymore. And it looks kind of really, I think it really starts to look kind of nice, because we're seeing a little bit through, and yeah, we also get a little bit of a greenish value. So the value between orange and red, as you can see here, this is probably what it should put out. So yeah, this is a basic SSS effect right now. So we can make all kind of cool stuff with that, of course, as you might have guessed. So yeah, there is not really much to it. I mean, this is basically it, what you can do with SSS. We could also give this here maybe some kind of bluish color if we would have something like that on the inside, and so on and so on. I'm not sure if we could really load textures here. I mean, I never tried this before. Let me load here an image texture maybe. Maybe, I don't know, some kind of, let me load this NES controller image here, for example. Let me see if anything is happening there. No, not really. Okay, so I guess images will not really work here, even though we can load one. So RGB spectrum, and then we can really play around here a little bit with the color that we want to have on the inside of the object and where the light should get around. We can also make this kind of bluish here, and so on and so on, and then really just play with the density. We could also go down here with the density to 0. Then, as you can see, we wouldn't see any scattering effect anymore. Let's bring this up to 300, so let's go a little bit extremer. Then you can see, okay, the bluish color now really goes more into the front, and the orange gets more and more absorbed by this bluish color. So yeah, there's a lot of stuff that we can do with it, and of course this effect also depends a little bit on the light, how it does finally look, so you have to play with that of course as well, and also a little bit on the angle. SSS will always come out the best when you really only have one big backlight, a really strong backlight. Most of the time you will not be able to only use this kind of situation because you, I don't know, need to light a complete product shot where maybe one or two materials are made out of plastic and have some kind of SSS effect or whatsoever, or you're rendering some different foods, what do I know. So you definitely have to have more light in the scene. So yeah, then you really just have to work with those lights and see how good you can really achieve or bring through the SSS effect. Even though your material is absolutely perfect and you love it with one single backlight, and then you put it in your final scene with an HDRI and so on and so on, and then it might not look so great anymore. But anyway, we can also go, is the roughness really set right now? No, not really. As you can see, we don't really have any reflection anymore. This is also because of this density value. It's taking away a lot from our reflection. So as you can see, this gets really, really blurred out. What we could do about this is we could mix it, create maybe a really, really shiny material, and then mix it over the specular, so we still get somehow some kind of reflection. Even though I think this here is probably realistic. If it has such a high density, then you also lose some kind of roughness or get more roughness. So if you change the spec here to 100 or maybe to 10, also I think the roughness should be, what did I do here exactly? Oh, it was just simply set to 1. Okay, this was my fault then. I really thought, I mean, I think this still has some kind of impact, does it? No, it doesn't. Okay, I was completely wrong, sorry. I think I was mixing this up with the bump, because as soon as we, let me show this quickly, as soon as we use a bump map on some kind of materials, let me just use this map here as bump, you will see that you, as higher the bump goes, that you will also lose a lot of roughness. So if I set this here to maybe a power of 10, or maybe let's go really high, let's maybe go to 50, you really start to see that we lose a lot of reflection, and we also, and this is kind of realistic when you have a bump map, that you also lose some kind of roughness and so on. So as you can see here on the ears, it's not really so glossy anymore. As soon as I deactivate this bump map, we should get the glossiness back here on the ear. As you can see now, it's really starting to be reflective again. So sorry for that, I did mix this up a little bit, so it doesn't really have to do something here with the yeah, with the density whatsoever. Density is just simply really the density. So yeah, you can use this also for butter, for milk, for whatsoever. Butter probably has a really, really high density, probably something like, I don't know, maybe something like 1000, and would of course probably not be blue on the inside, would also have a way higher roughness, maybe something like that. I mean, this transmission color might be already good for butter, and on the inside we could go a little bit more yellowish. This would be too extreme yellowish, but maybe something like this might look butterish. And I think this is not too much. Maybe we should go here a little bit more yellowish as well. Maybe some light yellowish, and I think the density is not too high. So let's maybe bring this down to maybe like 200. Yeah, 200 is not sick enough, I think. Also, I don't like the color too much right now. I would need to play with that a little bit as well. You have to go here greenish. No, this was completely bad thought. Again, I mean, I would really need to work on this now to really make this look like butter. Also, play here with the colors a lot to really keep this going, see what's going on. Yeah, the color is not perfect yet. And I think the density also needs to be a little bit higher. But this, yeah, this really depends on the geometry you're working with, which material you try to achieve, and so on and so on. So this might be kind of hard to achieve this right now. What we can do, we could try to make some kind of grapes to show you this whole thing once again. I mean, there's really not so much to it, to be honest. So let's just simply make a sphere. Bada boom, bada bam, and let's maybe give it 60 segments, something like this. Make it editable. Let's scale it out a little bit like this. And let's make it really a real world scale here. So in the Y, maybe something like 5 centimeters down here. And then we bring in a cloner object, MoGraph effector cloner. And let's drop this sphere into the cloner. Make this here render instances. So it's not really calculating every single geometry. Let's maybe bring a count everywhere to 5. And let's bring this down here. And here, so they are closer together. That's good. Let's select the cloner. Let's go MoGraph effector random. And now we get some kind of a nice random effect here. Yeah, right now it's a little bit too much random, so let's go down here with the X value and also down here with the Y value. And down here with the Z value, something like this. So they're sticking a little bit better together. Let me see where our big light is right now. Oh, I did delete this. Ah, damn it. Okay, let's create the light again. Put a light tag on it. If you really like it, put a light tag on it. This could be the new song from Beyonce. If you really like it, put a light tag on it. Might be cool. Anyway, let's change this light a little bit like this. And yeah, let's go here in front. So we're really looking at them. And let's see how strong our light is right now. Probably way too strong. Yeah, definitely. Ouch, ouch, ouch. This is hurting. Okay, so we need to go down here, maybe to something like 5. Let's try it extremely low. Might be too low. Let me bring the light a little bit more down. Coordinates Y. Let's go down here. Okay, something like this. Yeah, I think I like this. We also have a little bit of a DOF going on, which I also like. Oh, did I set on DOF? I think I did. I think I'm seeing one. Yes, I did. Okay. That's so extreme. Okay, anyway, let's maybe change here in the random also a little bit the Y. So they're not sticking so much together. Maybe they should. Maybe even more. Okay. Okay. Yesterday was Halloween, so excuse me if I'm not really if I'm only for 99.9% here right now. I'm not sure what I'm doing right now. Okay, anyway, I think it looks good like this, and let's just simply create a complete new material. Let's go create shader, Octane material, and let's try to make a little bit of a grape look here. Not with all the veins and stuff like that, because I think the veins inside of this thing really need to be modeled in. Also seeds and stuff like that. So we would really need to put seeds, so real geometry, in this grape, so we could see this as well. But I think this is just a little bit too much work right now. So let's just go with some glossy material here. Maybe if you really request, we can really go through and try to really make a complete realistic grape shot, or at least try it as good as we can. I mean, if you really try it, we will make it realistic. Enough said, really. Also, if we try it, we go for full realistic, or just simply don't do it. Okay, let me also get rid of the light. So camera visibility here, ticked off, so I'm not seeing that. And maybe this is still too strong, I'm not sure. Let's maybe go down here with the light a little bit more, maybe to value of 2. Value of, yeah, maybe 5 is okay. Let's just try it with the color first of all. Okay, so let's give this here in the transmission a little bit of greenish color. Of course, we do need this. That's maybe something more of a brighter color, maybe something like this. Yeah, I mean, yeah, might be okay. And then we can jump here into the medium and give this here a scattering medium. Yes, sir. Give it here absorption, a float texture. And then we can give it here some kind of RGB spectrum, of course. And we will make this here kind of a darker green, I would say. Something like this maybe. Maybe. I mean, I'm not 100% sure. And we also need a little bit more roughness here. Maybe like this. Maybe this is okay. As you can see, we're already getting a little bit here of our scattering medium effect. So we can see a little bit into those things. This might be still too much, the see-through effect or the scattering effect. So I think we need to go higher here a little bit with the density. And also we would need to play around with the color a lot more probably. So let me up the density here, maybe to something like 200. And let me up the light here a little bit more. So let's maybe bring the power here up to 20. So we can see a little bit better what's going on. Or 20 might be too strong. No, let's go with 10 maybe. 10 might be just fine. And I think I don't like the color whatsoever, so we definitely would need to change this here. Maybe to something hard to tell. Maybe something like this, and here a little bit brighter as well. And in the transmission we would also need to go a little bit brighter. Maybe like this. Okay. And we could also duplicate this sphere here a little bit, so we can, so that not every single clone here looks exactly the same, and then just duplicate here this material and drop this here on the second one, and this one here on the third one, and this one here on the fourth one, and then we could just simply try to give them a little bit more of a different scattering color. Maybe this here a little bit more brighter and a little bit more yellowish, and here in the transmission maybe a little bit more greenish, and maybe something like that. Maybe this was too much already. Jesus Christ, that escalated quickly. And yeah, and so on and so on. And maybe let's give the fourth one also a different one. Let's maybe give this more kind of a yellowish color as well. Something like this maybe. Yeah. This now really looks some kind of grapes material, even though there's a lot of noise on it. I really start to like this material, and here we have some violets going on as well, because of course when the light is scattering through this, they're mixing a little bit together. So if you have green and yellowish, it will kind of be of kind of bluish, kind of this violetish thing. So this is what we get. Of course, those grapes are not perfect. You would definitely need some kind of texture on them. That's for sure. Also, let me bring this here a little bit more into focus. And we might also would need to play, but we would also definitely need to an HDRI for this, and we would need to model some seeds and put them in them. And then we would also need a little bit of those veins, of course, that are going on inside of grapes. Here I found a really, really great shot. I hope it's still lying around somewhere. Yeah, here we go. So if you look at this picture, as you can see, there's still a long way to go to make this really realistic grapes, but at least you know what you're doing with SSS and how you can control it, how much light really gets scattered and the density and so on and so on. But we would still need to do a lot of texture work and also work with some roughness materials on it so that the reflection is not everywhere the same, and so on and so on. So we can, if you really want to, you can request this in the forum, of course, and then I will really try that we make the perfect grapes shot, or maybe something else, like something like milk, or what do I know, whatever you have in mind, just simply let me know. But I think for now, even though this was a little bit shorter, but as you can see in the there's a lot of stuff that you can read on the internet that goes a little bit more into, how can I say, that's not really educational, but more like scientific stuff that you can read on the internet about subsurface scattering and what is really going on behind that. But what is for us important to start rendering with subsurface scattering stuff is, of course, that what you also always can use, and also comes in handy sometimes if you open up here the LiveDB and just simply download some subsurface scattering materials and check them out as well. This will always help. I mean, I did this in the past, of course, as well. I did try to check out as much stuff that I could. So yeah, I think we might be too high here a little bit with density. Let's maybe go down here to 150 and see that. Maybe we could also change the phase maybe to -1. So it really gets backlit now. And this might also give us a little bit of a better effect. Even though normally I think 0 here is a good value, but for this shot and for those grapes right here, I think this will give us a better effect. And I think it starts to look kind of great. If you look at this grape or at this one. The problem is only that the inside is empty, and this is why it doesn't look so grape-like, but I think with the density we are almost there. Maybe we need to go a little bit higher, but we would only see that as soon as we start to really put veins and put seeds and so on really into these grapes. Okay, so like I said, there is not really much to it. You only have this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 things that we could talk about, and the most important ones is the emission, the scattering, the absorption, and the density. Then that you need the transmission, that you can play around with the index, of course. We could give this here a higher index as well if you want to. And that you need to play around a little bit with the roughness, of course, and that those things are really playing together. But in the end, of course, it's really hard to make the perfect skin shader. Only a few people in the world can really make a really, really good skin shader with SSS, and this is probably something that you might also can achieve with Octane. But it might be kind of hard. I mean, there are a lot of people sitting around, they're scripting their own subsurface scattering materials only for movies, only for the special skin, what do I know. So there's of course a lot more to it, but inside of Octane it is not. We only have those few buttons, and this is what you can do with it. And as I said, as you have more questions, please just simply jump into the forum, start asking, and so on and so on. I will try to answer or make a new tutorial or whatsoever. But I really, really hope that this was kind of helpful to get you started with subsurface scattering. So have a really, really nice day, and I'll catch you in the next lesson.